Hi, everyone. My name is Rob Schout. Thanks so much for joining us today and to another edition of. Hi, everyone. My name is Rob Schout. Thanks so much for joining me, and thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of PowerSkills training modules. Today, we're going to focus on leadership development, specifically one aspect of the four dimensions of leadership, spirited leadership in action. So, without any further ado, let's learn about leadership development and spirited leadership in action. Hi, everyone. My name is Rob Schout. I am president of PowerSkills Training and Development. Thanks so much for joining me today for another edition of a PowerSkills training module. Today, we're going to focus on leadership development, specifically the four dimensions of leadership, and within that, spirit-centered leadership in action. So, without any further ado, let's get started, my friends. As we think about leadership development, there are always four dimensions of leadership that we talk about. There are thousands of books about leadership development, strategic leadership, tactical leadership, principle-centered leadership, on-the-spot leadership, all these kinds of topics on leadership. But all leadership falls into four dimensions. So let's talk about those today. I'll give you an idea of, I hope, what I can bring to bear on this situation. So my background is in organization management and policy, clinical social work, professional growth and leadership development at work, and human behavior in the workplace. When we talk about leadership development, we're kind of talking about all of that. We're talking about how we change cultures and climates at work, how we deal with policy, how we lead change, but also how we help people individually as they are moving through change, all the behaviors, all the professional development that has to take place. So let's put that all together in one package. Before we focus in on just spirited leadership development, which is our topic for today, I want to give an overview of the four dimensions. I told you a moment ago that all thousands of topics on leadership fall into these four dimensions. Spirited leadership is one's ability to show up with character, with values, with virtues, with principles, philosophies, and very specific paradigms. Because when a leader can show up in their fullest sense, their authentic self of leader within them, and they can act upon values, virtues, principles, philosophies, then no matter what winds of change blow, what political pressures blow at work or outside of work, what stress blows, and what personal requests are made of them, they stand firm. They may be quaking inside at times because they don't know what to do all the time, but they retrench themselves in their values, in the principles, in the philosophies, and that gives them a steady course. We're going to be talking about that today, about specifically how to take those values off of a wall or just out of mind and put them into action. The other dimensions of leadership are servant leadership. Servant leadership is not just how a person shows up in service to others, but it's how a leader creates a culture of service at work, not just towards external customers, like in customer service, that's part of it, but how they build teams, how they create and cradle culture of service and sharing amongst team members, sharing of resources, sharing of knowledge, sharing of skills, sharing of experience, supporting each other in practical problem solving, peer planning, peer feedback, peer motivation, peer recognition. So, how we create and cradle cultures of service and sharing is about servant leadership. So, team building falls under that, peer development falls under that, individual development falls under that. A whole bunch of things fall under servant leadership. Situational leadership is how a leader is able to assess current situations, current circumstances, or current encounters. So, how they analyze a situation when someone comes to them and says, "This is what's going on," or a change is suddenly thrust upon them, or a new priority is given to them, or they have to make a decision. It's how they assess it objectively, not just what people want, but what are the real needs based on the goals. So all supervisors, all managers, all leaders have goals. They have organizational goals, team goals, their own leadership goals for individuals on their team and for them to manage their own priorities and tasks, and also how to come across and communicate with other people. So whenever a situation arises where they have to react, they fall into situational leadership, which means assessing the situation, what are the needs, what are the wants, but comparing those to the goals, and then determining how to pivot in their decision drivers and in their decision making, how to pivot in communication to give information or communicate something to a team, or change their styles in a moment, or get a team to change its styles or its priorities, to engage in problem solving. So, situational leadership is assessing situations, determining the needs and the goals, not just the wants, and then pivoting in appropriate responses in style, decision making, solutions, whatever the pivot needs to be. And then strategic leadership is how a leader focuses on the future, either because they're hit with a new future reality or they are determining a future that they want to move a team towards, and how they cast that vision, even if they don't like what they're being hit with. They turn it positive, they turn it at least productive, and they say, here's the vision for this. They sometimes can co create that vision with team members and say, what is our vision for moving towards this new reality, this new goal, this new objective, this future vision? And then they chart a path. Either they do it or they co create a path that's very tactical, practical, and objective oriented. What are our first sets of objectives? What are all the activities we need to do to meet those objectives? Who needs to change in what way? And how are we going to do this? And now, what's our next objective? So, strategic leadership is about casting a vision, meeting a change, facilitating and championing that change, and engaging in planning that helps people move from their current reality. Tactically move, strategically move, practically move from their current place to a future. And we champion all of that. So those are the four dimensions. Which ones do you need to grow in? Which ones do your management team members or supervisors need to grow in? And which ones do your employees need to embrace and understand a little bit more? Some of the supervisory and management and leadership classes at PowerSkills can help you understand that. But let's zero in now on spirited leadership. So, spirited leadership is about character, values in action, virtues in action for an individual or a whole team, principles that we stand on, philosophies that we engage in, so that people can trust our credibility, trust our character, and want to go along with it when we need to engage as strategic leaders or situational leaders, or get them to do something as servant leaders. We have to start with what are the values, the virtues, the principles, and our philosophies. So always ask yourself, if you wonder how to do this to begin with. Think about it, a leader in life, a leader in your own world, in your own culture, a leader at work, maybe past or present, who you really admire. You admire because they were able to show character in the midst of change. So, who is that leader? And take a moment to think, what did you admire about them? Maybe it was their strategies. Maybe it was their communication styles. But what did you really admire? What are they able to do that you aspire to doing? And sometimes leaders, when I think about the leaders in my own life, the mentors that I had, the leaders at work, the leaders in my culture and community, I always think of their character. They had tenacity. They had courage and bravery when all the rest of us didn't. And even they exercised their courage even when they were afraid. They had fortitude to keep going even when times got tough. They were able to pivot and be eloquent and compassionate with people and not just dictatorial with people. They were able to empathize, but also be disciplined and say, I get where you're coming from, and you still have to move. You still have to grow. You still have to change. But I get it. Those are the people that I think about. What are the characteristics, the principles, the practices, the philosophies, or the values of the people that you admire? Because that's who you aspire to be. And that's what you need to jot down on a piece of paper or put up on a wall or hold in mind and say, how am I being that? Not just admiring that person. They are gone now. They are not in my situation. How am I going to embody those things? Because that's why we admire people, because we aspire to be like them. Spirited leadership ensures a leader is solidly centered upon the leaders in the organization's mission and values. They put that at the focus, at the center. They're focused on values and virtues in action, not just nice words or a poster on a wall. Or rhetoric that people say that we are all people of integrity or accountability, or we're determined. That's rhetoric. Spirited leaders are focused on living that and saying, how are we going to live our accountability, live our integrity? How are we going to practice it? Don't give me words. Don't give me rhetoric. Don't give me a nice poster. How are we going to live it? What virtues do we need to meet this challenge or make this change or to strive towards our goal? Do we need courage? And how will that show up? We'll try different things. Do we need compassion and empathy for those that are trying to come along with us? And get rid of our biases. And we empathize and have compassion. Do we need fortitude? Do we need some patience? And maybe not push so fast, so far. And just be patient with some people really growing in skills and trying to do the best they can. Or patience with ourselves when we trip and we stumble. Do we need forgiveness so that we're not shaming and blaming people along the way? And we're not also just settling into old shame within ourselves. Or when someone trips up, we don't beat them down or say, you should have known better. Or that bias shouldn't be here. Can we express forgiveness and help them move on? Help ourselves move on. What principles and what philosophies are we going to stand on so people can count on our credibility and trust us and trust our character? What's our philosophy and our principles? What are our priorities and our promises? Is the priority just to hell with all the people, let's just account? Is that a priority? Or is our priority that, okay, we have to accomplish these tasks, we have to move towards this change and make this change, but our priority is to support people in the process. Our priority is understanding of where people are at and how hard it is for some people. What promises are we going to make them? So, as a leader, a spirited leader, we focus on what's the mission, what's the vision, what are the values and the virtues, and how are we bringing them to life? What principles will I stand on, and philosophy will I promise you, and what are our priorities? The word spirited comes from Latin, and so it comes from the Latin word sperare, which means to breathe, to animate your original principles. So, spirit within a person is the animating energy that brings a body to life. Spirit within an idea is the animating principle that brings that idea from just, oh, that's a nice idea, to an initiative, to reality. I'm going to put it out there and then we're going to act on it. So, sperare or spirit means the seat of someone's emotions and character. And spirited leaders don't just talk a good game, they demonstrate it, they role model character. It means the qualities regarded as forming the definitive and typical elements in a person's character or nation or group. So, spirited leadership is not just the leader, the supervisor, the manager showing up with character, it's them getting everyone to identify the character that is meeting this moment. And everyone being bold, everyone being courageous, everyone being people of accountability, or whatever the character trait is. And you make agreements around that. And you have individual conversations with people so that you're both walking down the hall or walking into a meeting with character. It's the quality of courage and energy, the determination or assertiveness in someone. So spirited leaders, they can be introverts, they can be very calm, but they have determination. They show assertiveness. Even in their quietness, they'll say, I need to put something on the table. We're not talking about something that needs to be talked about. And they have the courage to do it. And it's the attitude or the intentions with which someone undertakes or regards something. It's positivity instead of pessimism. So, are you a spirited leader? And more importantly, you are a spirited leader. You have oceans of it inside of you. Can you pull it out? Do you know what type of spirit, what type of character, what type of courage, what type of values are necessary in this moment? And are you infusing them into your encounters? And saying them right up front, this is what we need. How are we going to do this? So think of the demonstrations of character that you need to exemplify, but also that everyone needs to exemplify, so that you can put them out on the table and you can say, we're going to talk about them whenever we need to talk about them. Philosophies are also part of spirit-centered leadership. So think of your own personal philosophy or leadership philosophy. I put a few of them on the right-hand side of the screen. Maybe always begin with the end in mind. So whenever you go into a group, you're going to say, what is our goal? What's our mission here? Let's start there. Or maybe your philosophy is to put purpose and principles and policies and the programs that are necessary for service to others, all ahead of people's wants or their personal requests, or maybe just what their positions call for, and say, we need to meet this moment and go beyond that. Or maybe personal feelings. So maybe your philosophy is, we're going to put certain things first. And it doesn't mean I'm discounting feelings or requests, but we're putting other things first because we're here to serve. Or maybe it's to stay centered or grounded in goodness and say, I'm always going to see the good in the situation. So get ready for it. I'm always going to ask, what good can we do here? I'm always going to see the good in you. Even when you're freaking out or acting out, I'm going to say, I get it. I understand it. We need to stop that. But I get that you are good. So, what is your philosophy or philosophies of leadership? And do your people know those philosophies? And are you acting in accordance with them? Each day, the best way you know how. Part of spirited leadership is to show up with philosophies, communicate them, and act upon them. So, what are yours? And do others know them and trust them? Or are there inconsistencies? Leaders also act on paradigms and personal truths. A paradigm is a view through which they see the world and other people. And then they hold personal truths, their own beliefs, sometimes their own biases. But biases, in this way, I don't mean biases against something. It could be biases for something or towards something or someone. And so leaders always are clear, spirited leaders, because they're acting on character and values. They clean their lens, their paradigm lens, so that they're not getting misperceptions of others. They have a paradigm of, I'm going to frame this and look through this and speak to this through this lens. So, do people know your paradigms, the way in which you see things? Do you know the way in which you see things, and does your lens need to be cleaned a bit? Are your personal truths, the things you're clinging to, your beliefs, though they should be acknowledged, are they honorable? Meaning, are they helping everyone or only a few? Are you basing your personal, infusing your personal beliefs into your professional role? Maybe your personal spiritual beliefs or political beliefs or ideologies. That's your personal truth. And if you're infusing that into your professional role, then you're being biased and skewing people's trust in you, trust in your objectivity. Even though you may be talking glowingly about spiritual principles or political or ideological principles, they're still skewed. So spirited leaders check their personal truths and see and ask, are they helping or hindering? Are they helping me be more objective with people to help them out? Spirited leaders look at values, and then they make value-centered agreements with behaviors. So they don't just post these up on a wall, we're going to be valuing partnership or fun or respect or integrity or accountability. They bring them to life and they say, what will respect look like in action for us during meetings, during your appraisals, during your development time, when you are talking to me and I am talking to you? What will that look like and what should that look like? So they talk about inbound behaviors and out-of-bound behaviors. So ask yourself, what are the values that are guiding you, that you're espousing, and that you want your team to center on? And are there behaviors that are associated with them? Or are people just saying, I respect everyone? I respect everyone. Because that's an inconsistency. And spirited leaders don't go along with inconsistencies. What are the virtues? Virtues are internal guidance systems of your ethics, of what you know you should be doing with another person or with yourself. And so it might be virtues of courage or virtues of acceptance. Acceptance doesn't mean agreement, like I agree with everything that's happening or what someone else is doing, but I accept that that's what's happening. And if we can't even move into acceptance, then we're not even at the starting point of helping people change or adjusting ourselves or becoming more resilient. So what virtues as a spirited leader do you need to work on? Do you need to get the team to settle into and demonstrate and identify specific situations where different virtues need to be present? I hope some of this helps, my friends. All of this is trademarked by PowerSkills Training and Development, Robert James Schout, and Shout It Out LLC. If you want more of this information or more training for yourself or for your team, feel free to email us at info@powerskillsinternational.com or go to our website, www.powerskillsinternational.com. Send us a note, make a request, or ask for a catalog. Our coaching catalogs, our training catalogs, or maybe our team retreat catalogs so that you can engage in planning around these kinds of issues. My name is Rob Schout. Thanks so much for joining us. I hope some of this helps, and I hope you can put it into action right away as spirited leaders. Have a wonderful day.